Welcome and thank you for tuning in to Film Festival Friends podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Nick. Today, I'm chatting with my friends from across the pond, Dean, Atta, and Baz Sells, two of the three creative minds behind the evocative, BAFTA-nominated animated short film, Two Black Boys in Paradise. Join us for an enriching, vulnerable conversation starting now. Thank you both for joining me. I am here with my festival friends, Dean, Atta, and Baz Sells. How are we feeling today?
Good.
Doing great, thanks.
And wait, because I see, Baz, in your window that it's very dark. What time is it where you guys are?
Is it 10 to 9 now?
Wow.
Nearly 9 p.m.
Yeah,
I just taken my glasses off, so it's a bit late.
It's nighttime.
Yes. Well, thank y'all for the flexibility, and I'm super duper excited to have this conversation. So before I guess we get into all of the beautiful things, I want to ask a icebreaker question, and this is because I feel like generally there's always so tell me about your film, but I want to challenge y'all to describe your film using a color, a sound, and a food. It can be any combination of the three, but when you think about Two Black Boys in Paradise, describe it as a color, a sound, and a food.
Oh my goodness.
A blue splash and an apple.
Ooh, blue splash and an apple. Fitting.
I'm thinking of all the food that actually appears on our market stalls. We've got bread, we've got cheese, which is not the question whatsoever, but it's where my mind is going. I would say this is really tough. Sound has to be, I'm just going to say a whisper.
Okay.
And for a food, I'm going to say cake because it's very fulfilling.
I love that.
You know, it started with a poem. So I wrote a poem inspired by a picture of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And I thought, why can't Black queer people be there? And that's why I wanted to write a poem where two Black boys were there in Eden. And our producer, Ben Jackson, saw me reading that poem at an event in Berlin. So his partner Kai is a friend of mine and introduced me to Ben. And then Ben introduced me to Baz, took the poem to Baz and said, you know, he wanted to make a queer film for a long time and this poem could be the one to do that. So yeah, they asked me if I wanted to do a stop motion animation and I said, sure. I didn't know what I was getting myself in for, or I don't think they knew what they were getting themselves in for because it took 5 years to make the film.
How do we arrive at staffing and casting this animated film?
And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Baz, our director.
Yeah, so it was a very long journey. And as Dean says, we definitely didn't understand at the time how long of a journey it would be and how, involved it would be. To answer your question on casting, that suggestion was from Dean, who knew our narrator, Jordan, from the spoken words poetry scene. Was it, Dean, that you first met Jordan?
Yeah.
And Jordan very much encapsulates a kind of an energy and I think embodies a lot of what we wanted to say. He very much lives and acts upon many of the conversations. Would you say, Dean?
That was one of the big things we talked about when we were actually recording the voiceover in Abbey Road Studios here in London, was kind of what does masculinity mean to us as the crew that were working on the film? So, you know, we stopped the narration recording. Jordan stops it to have this conversation. He kind of made basically, it was if we'd recorded it, it would have been a good podcast because he made us all talk about what does masculinity mean to you? Because there's a line in the poem that says, you know, masculinity has not been required of them, the two boys in paradise. And I think that line means different things to different people. And I think everyone brings something of themselves to the story. And I think that's the beautiful thing about having a really big and diverse crew working on the film. Everyone was bringing something of their lived experience and their passion for storytelling and for, you know, justice and for, you know, love to be, you know, in the world. So I think that was really, really special. Everyone had found a personal connection, even if it wasn't an obvious one on an identity level, if you see what I mean.
That's beautiful. And so I know you said that it took 5 years to make this film, which in my mind's eye, I can imagine because I just know, not from like a tangible, visceral level, but from like a practical level, how much, how exhausting and how tedious stop motion animation can be. So knowing that it took 5 years, Baz, can you talk me through like what those stages looked like?
Yeah, of course. So I think it was about a year of development on our part. So that was me, Ben, and Dean kind of exchanging a version of the outline of the film. During that time, we were also looking for funding, and we were unsuccessful on 2 or 3 occasions. I think I can't remember now, but so we put in some applications with our pitch deck. They were ultimately unsuccessful on those funds, but each time it allowed us to refine the pitch deck, so it got stronger and stronger, and the creative really was, by the time we got to the BFI, who ended up funding the project through something that's called the Short Form Animation Fund, that was probably the point in which we were absolutely ready. So it was about a year of development, and then after that, we kind of worked with the BFI and our executive producer there, Aoife Hayes, on the creative to really refine the ideas and strip back some of the ideas and build upon some of the others. You know, like the sex scene, for example, was built upon in that stage. So that was probably about 6 more months because there's certain funding, paperwork around it that has to kind of be cleared. And then we went into pre-production. And I think from pre-production in terms of model making and kind of prop making and puppet making and shooting the film, I think was 3 years. And that kind of crossed over a little bit. So we started building, and then when we got enough kind of assets to put it on camera, we started filming whilst the building was taking place. And then I think it was probably about a year of post-production, not continuously. We worked on the edit, then we worked on our music, and then we kind of revisited it a little later. But yeah, so all in all, 5 years, and it's hard to compartmentalize those things because it was such a long period of time that I think even now, like, my memories of it are kind of memories of memories. And, you know, especially at a time when we were working so hard and long hours, you know, you're not really got a sense of linear time. But yeah, that was more or less the timeline.
Awesome. And I want to talk about more the actual materialization of the short later on. But first, I had a question, and I know you said your memories are kind of like memories of memories. So as best as either of you can remember, because you talked about the journey of funding and how I have a habit of translating or simplifying. And how the habit of rejection helped you sharpen the vision of the short. Do you remember like what this first pitch deck had that maybe no longer exists, or like how you shifted from the story story version 1 to like the final version?
Dean, shall I start, and you can see if I've missed anything?
Yeah, sure.
Generally speaking, I think in our early version, actually, we had a lot of the key parts and a lot of the key moments in the film were written in. I think maybe our most challenging scene was probably the market, where I think we had more in there than we needed. And in our final version, that became more stripped back. We were keen to say as much as we could about the themes that Dean kind of raises in his poem, but in doing so, there was also, I think, a time in which maybe we were trying to say too much, and in the end, we kind of leaned into simplify it, which I think made those scenes even more powerful because they were not bogged down by too much kind of commentary about, you know, things that we wanted to speak about. It was a lot more stripped back. Dean, what's your recollection of the, say, first draft from the last? What would you say are the major points?
I think you've kind of covered it, like stripping it back and knowing why what every image means, like kind of having a kind of collective understanding, because I think we pitched in different ideas and some of them meant more to individuals. And so it meant we had to kind of like fully all be on board, like why this is here, what it means, how it translates to an audience who kind of isn't going to get our explanation. Is it clear? So, in the market, I think that is true. Like we did kind of have lots of different things that could happen to the boys in the market, but we kind of really focused in on, they're holding hands, people look at them, they let go of each other's hands, they're accused of stealing, and then the police are called on them, and then they stand up for themselves. But it was like there were a lot of other suggestions put in there. We can all imagine, the types of things that happen to us as, queer people or Black people, or, but it was interesting to throw lots of ideas in to the mix and talk about them, and talk about like why we think they were important, and share sometimes quite difficult, challenging experiences that we'd had as individuals, like, and just kind of put it out there and say, and that's why I think that should be in the film. But ultimately, like, I think Baz says it best, like the best idea wins, and I think he's really good at that. So when an idea is kind of like we're all on board, then those are the ones to keep. And if anyone's like, then, we kind of have to back off a bit and be like, maybe that idea can go, like that can go into something else that one of us makes, like, So, and I think it was great getting to a point where we could all be behind every single frame in the film. Like, so that development and refining meant we got to have really great conversations. So, if we got accepted on our first, try for funding, we might have made a very different film, because we've just kind of been like, great, let's just do it, like, before they take the money away. Every time, you get a rejection or kind of like unsuccessful in a kind of application for funding, it means you have to interrogate, is this what we want to do? Is this how we want to do it? Do we still want to do this?
I remember that feeling, actually. I remember getting into production once we'd been greenlit, and being backed by the BFI was an absolutely beautiful experience. They're such a massive institution, with a worldwide reputation, and every filmmaker dreams of seeing that BFI ident at the start of one of their films. But I do remember that having a conversation when we were going into the say set builds and puppet builds, and saying, I'm actually already quite tired. We'd put so much work into that development stage, and obviously leading up to funding, like that's all unfunded development time that you've put into it. So I think by the time we got to the BFI fund, where the creative had grown, and which meant the budget had got bigger as well, there was a feeling that this really had to be the one, because it was maybe the only fund in this country that I know of that would back a film of this ambition with a budget that would somewhat match it. So there was definitely a feeling like this has to be the one. And luckily the BFI really saw our vision and bought into it. And the rest is history.
BFI is amazing. That is beautiful. And if you can you share what the full budget was?
I'm actually under orders not to say it publicly, if that's okay.
No, that is okay.
Yeah, no, I can say that because this is public information, but the BFI fund covers projects from between, I think, 30,000 British pounds to 120,000.
Dean, you had said something and it triggered a thought in me. Knowing how especially I'll take a small step back. Dean, was this your first film project?
It's the first stop motion animation, and it's the first film project that I've been involved in that's gone to festivals and done the whole journey.
The whole show. Okay.
Yeah, like I've had other poems adapted for TV and film. I've had animation students make animations of my poetry, and sometimes without my permission, and just like say, and it's just they say like, I did this for my project at university. Yeah. Can I put it online? And I'm like, let's see it then. And then I'm like, yeah, let's put it online. And I've had other things on kind of national television here, but that usually has involved like me performing the poem. So
Okay.
this is very different. Like I kind of like, I'm not, you don't hear my voice, you know, it's kind of I very much give over the poem to this
Yeah.
process because I really wanted to see what other creatives were gonna do with it. So, and even
Yeah.
though I was an exec producer, like I was more kind of hands off most of the time. You know, whenever there was a kind of troubleshooting session, I would be on hand to kind of like discuss, but I was only on the actual set once, so it wasn't something that I was like physically doing. I was very much moral support for the guys when they needed it, and I loved that role because, you know, in the meantime, in those 5 years I wrote 3 books, like so, you know,
Love
I was
that.
doing other things.
So what I'm hearing is Dean is that girl. What I'm hearing is Dean is that girl, and I love that. And so the reason I asked, and I think my question does still stand, regardless of if this was your first or your 40th, knowing that filmmaking inherently is a conversation of collaboration. And then I guess throwing in this extra apple on top of it being like stop motion animated. Rather not the conversation, what was the relationship like building that synergy? And I'm asking you both, but I guess I'll start with you, Dean, because Baz, as I understand, you and Ben are also working together for the studio. So like, what was it for both of you? But again, starting with you, Dean, to like, to cultivate this shared language, um, to best make Two Boys in Paradise happen? Like, what was that relationship like of, as you were saying, like surrendering to process?
I think 2 words come to mind. One is trust. Like I trusted them because they had a really clear vision. They'd done amazing storyboarding, concept art. We'd worked together on Baz's script, you know, and me and Ben had lots of input on that. But ultimately, Baz had a vision, and
Yeah.
I saw that vision and trusted it and saw the passion of both of them. And I just knew that they were going to do something beautiful, especially once I started seeing the concept art that Sana, our creative director, had done as well. Like I even used the concept art for one of my book covers. Like you recognize the boys under the water there. So
Yes.
like I was fully on board, and I couldn't wait to see like how it was all going to look. But also from my part, there was as well as trust, the other word is kind of like boundaries. I had to decide like how involved I wanted to be and how involved they needed me to be. And I actually felt like I will wait to be asked to come in and have a chat. I will wait to be invited to the studio. Like, and I didn't want to be on the WhatsApp groups, which I heard were very intense. Like there was several departments working on the film and they had a WhatsApp group for each department. And I was like, nah, like I'll just email me if you need me. Like, let's have a Zoom if you want. But, like, I don't want like round the clock updates on this film. Like, I just want to trust you because I know you're going to do a good job. So that was for me the best way to kind of hand over you know, all the kind of like creative control and just kind of be on hand if needed. And then after the film was made, you know, going to the festivals, like I think I really loved that. I loved going to represent the film and networking and kind of making sure people knew about this film. Like that's been really fun for me. And I can be like somewhat objective, like with my like pride for the film, because like I'm not one of the animators. So I can say, isn't it beautiful? Didn't they do an amazing job? Isn't this fantastic?
Yes.
And I don't sound like it's my ego, like, because I didn't do that. They did that.
Yeah, I have to go the opposite direction. I have to be that person that cannot say any of that. But yeah, I think for me that your trust really does sum it up, and kind of I want to talk about that from my point of view, that how moving that was for me, because I was moving into a space here that wasn't, you know, it was unfamiliar territory, and in terms of, you know, I don't belong to the groups that represented on screen through Our Boys, but equally Ben and Dean were both initially giving me that trust. Really, you know, it meant a lot to me because that I knew that was not a small act. And also just through the conversations we had, I feel like the level of understanding and um, kind of, I want to say, I'm going to say it, Dean, because I know you've used this word before, but grace that was given in our conversations really meant a lot to me, because some of the conversations that we had in the creative process were not easy to have.
Mm-hmm.
That we cover some difficult subject matters, and I felt like the great thing about those conversations is that I think, quite quickly established a good relationship and trust between us all that made those conversations possible. And it made us, it enabled us to explore those themes in a deep and meaningful way. It wasn't surface level. It was, Ben and Dean, like, very openly, I'm not saying it was easy, but openly sharing experiences that they'd had that are, deeply personal experiences, which really gave me, I mean, I already felt a great sense of responsibility to the subject matter, to Ben and Dean and their stories, but it just made me even more dead set on making this film as beautiful and as, incredible as we possibly could. Also, for me and Ben, we've been collaborating for maybe 15 plus years, and it was also a process that very much deepened our friendship, because there was a period for maybe the first 10 years of our friendship that I wasn't aware that, Ben was in the closet, that he was gay. And then when Ben comes to speak about how he was feeling in, just from a young age, of not being able to express himself truly, I would go back to those conversations and imagine how awkward he must have felt. To now we're at this place where we know each other, we're discovering who we really are. And this is an opportunity for us to make something, really beautiful for screen. So that's the real answer. That's the authentic answer.
No,
for
and
me.
that was beautiful, because what I heard was some level of like yes, the trust is like obviously one of the most important factors in collaboration, right? But even in the shared differences and similarities of I'm speaking of, when I say y'all in this point, I mean you, Baz, Dean, and Ben, the shared what y'all bring into this is really beautiful, and just like the expressions of softness and grace that y'all offer to each other. And I also do think that is very much felt in the short. So again, I thank you for the vulnerability, and I also do believe that great work comes at the sacrifice of conflict resolution and like shedding skin. So that we can be whoever we need to become in order to tell the work. And I'm saying this as a person who has like passively been following this short. I think for the second run of my film festival circuit, I have a very close friend of mine named Larry Jean, and I remember Larry Jean had sent me a voice note. I want to say this was August or September. I actually think the voice note, Dean, actually might have been longer than the short itself. But Larry Jean was telling me, and Larry Jean is also a filmmaker. Larry Jean was telling me that she was like, I saw this short film, Two Black Boys in Paradise. I think it was like Holly Shorts. I saw it at Holly Shorts, and Brandon, like, I just need you to see it. I need you, like, if you can like buy the like virtual pass, I just need you to see it. That like, it was just telling me about like what the film was about, but also what it did for her. And so I looked up the trailer. I was like, okay, the fact that you are gushing so passionately about this, I need to look into it. And I was like, oh wow, this really, the trailer alone had just spoke to me, because I'm like, oh wow, there's an animated short about two gays, two black boys, who love each other. And it's like, how rare is that like we get to see ourselves reflected, and get to see ourselves reflected in such imaginative ways. Like, I'm very grateful for all of the live action black queer content that exists, but like the beauty of like Two Black Boys in Paradise is that like it is not live action. I feel like that does something different to like the spirit and the psyche. So it was like when I actually got to first see it, I was like, wow, this is transcendent work. And I say all of that to say thank you both. Thank you, Baz, for leading such a beautiful a beautiful short. And thank you, Dean, for trusting them with this vision. I think y'all collectively did a wonderful job. How did y'all approach how to best frame the more difficult themes, namely this the interaction between the boys and the cop? But then also, I mean, and I want to say this as a separate question because I imagine there's much to talk about around the sex, but like I'm also just keeping that in my mind as well because I'm just like, oh, I don't think I'd ever like in my life thought I'd see like a clay penis before that belonged like to a black dude. I watched the short. I'd been telling my husband about the short. He is also black. Um, and the moment I forgot where we are in the short, but he was like, "Are we going to see?" Because I think we can sense that like they're not clothed in the boat. He was like, "We finna see some clay booty cheeks," and then we see the. He was like, "Oh no, clay porn, clay porn," and we joked, but it was really just like a joke of like reverence because again, like this is not anything that we thought that we'd see in our lifetime. So again, much flowers to you. But going back to my initial question, how did y'all broach the ways to best handle the difficult or more nuanced elements of the film?
I'll start and then you can talk about it kind of more technically, Baz. But I think the police stop and search and the sex scene are kind of like mirrors of each other in terms of like, the unwanted touch from the police and then the very much wanted touch of
Yeah.
the sex. And so I think that they work so well because of that. I think, we definitely, as we say, stripped back to the most essential moments, and I think they felt very essential. So yeah, on a kind of how was that done, Baz? Like with the police search, like with just the hands, that was quite interesting, wasn't it? Like how that decision that everything melts away and you just see the hands.
Yeah, when I think about that, I mean, I can first speak to obviously there were conversations between us and Dean sharing his own personal experience. But I remember in my research when we were kind of discussing that aspect of the film, that I watched a video, I think it was somewhere on YouTube, and it was various accounts from young black men, I think living in London, who had been stopped and searched, and they were describing how it made them feel. And each one was slightly different, but I felt like the common theme that was running through it was isolation and being cut off from one's community or one's friends. So for me, I couldn't tell you where that image came from. It did just appear. But it was, I think in hindsight, that scene was very much about focusing on Dula. And so we know that his senses, if he is stood there, his senses are on the touch. This is not a scene about the policeman. It's a scene about Dula and how he feels. So for us, it was important to also strip back everything around him so that we can get that heightened sense of how he's feeling. And then that's where you lean into obviously sound as well. Everything becomes heightened, where the breath you can feel, you can really hear that, the heartbeat you hear. And so it really becomes a kind of a really microscopic moment where you're really honing in on the I guess intimacy of that moment. And it's not a nice, not necessarily the right word to use, but it is such a tactile moment. And then on the contrary, like with the sex scene, tonally that again is a very difficult one because puppets it's tricky to make intimacy work between puppets for a number of reasons. Some of them are logistical and technical, but equally because, as you say, how often do you see physical intimacy translated through puppets? So I mean, but it was important for us to go there because I think showing that and normalizing it's like, what? Well, yes, there are technical reasons why that you might not have seen that before, but there are definitely plenty of other reasons why you've not seen that on screen before, which made it even more important that we do find a way to do it. That yes, there are technical limitations, but the bigger point there is that actually we need to see that imagery and we need to show it and we need to be proud of it. And I think that's what we try to do.
We needed a bit of encouragement to be encouragement to be brave enough to show it that way. So there was an earlier version where you were going to see the boys, the boat rocking rather than see the sex itself. And we were encouraged by our exec at the BFI, Aoife Hayes. So she was like, this is an animation, but it's not a children's animation. It doesn't have to, shy away. And I think because I've written a lot of books for children and young adults, and when sex comes up in my books for teens, I tend to kind of like pan away, like I kind of it gets to the moment and then leave the rest of the imagination, because I don't want my books banned. And that does happen.
It does.
So I wasn't sure, and then once we decided to go for it, like it was just about how do you make it beautiful and how do you make the images just really move people, and the boys look like they're having fun, and so beautiful moment for me is when they're about to engage in penetrative sex and they're talking about it. You can see them talking to one another, and it feels like, yes, there's a communication, there's consent, this is a really beautiful intimate moment, and it's just so enjoyable, and like the climax is just fun, like with the peacock getting involved. And every screening we've been at, it gets like a laugh, a gasp, like people just feel so, you can feel how elated people feel in that moment, seeing that. And I just think it's been done, so perfectly. The fact that it goes into slow-mo when they're climaxing, it's just so great. Like it's my favorite moment in the film, I think. But it's, I'm so glad we really went there. Once we decided to do so, we really, found the right images that would kind of portray what was happening without having to get into the technicals, of showing anything in particular. Like, but you could see they were being intimate and they were having fun and they were free in all senses. And I just think that is what we need. That's what the film is about. And so to not have shown it would have been a great shame. So I'm really grateful that we were challenged and encouraged to actually go all the way with that, because I think it's a better film for it.
Yeah, it is, for sure.
I agree. And I thank y'all. And I thank the person who suggested and encouraged y'all to lean in. And I thank y'all for leaning in, because it also makes me think, and I think I said this to some degree earlier, but I think in a lot of respects, y'all have made something that I do believe will be the foundation and the blueprint for other like projects to come. In the same way that, like, granted, these things are in some ways very ubiquitous to us, but like I think in the same way that like Moonlight had given folks permission to like, oh, we can tell, queer stories. We can lean into other forms of like Black masculinity. I think Two Black Boys in Paradise would do something very similar. Did either of you imagine that Two Black Boys in Paradise would take off or do the things that it did? And being in the position that we are in now, Tuesday, November 25th at 2 different time zones. How are y'all sitting? And I know this is a loaded question, but like, how are y'all sitting with the praise and the recognition and of course all of the awards, right? That this Black queer film is getting. And again, whoever feels compelled to tap the mic.
Well, since you mentioned Moonlight, I think the success of Moonlight really did make me think anything was possible for Black queer storytelling, when it won all the awards, and just the fact of its beauty, the fact of its existence. Like, there's so many things about Moonlight that kind of stay with me, especially the scene in the water, but also like how it was lit. And it's really interesting because one of our co-DOPs, Kevin Paul Lawrence, like he was taught by Barry Jenkins. So, you know, he was thinking about Moonlight when he was kind of lighting our scene with the boys in the boat in the water. So I just think, you know, there's a direct connection there from, you know, Barry to our film. And I think that's the really interesting thing that, you know, without Moonlight, you know, would we have felt this was possible? Would we have, you know, been as bold? Would the funders have seen the potential? You know, so I think if our film is going to do that for future, you know, stop motion animators or people wanting to tell Black queer stories, I think that's an amazing thing to
lineage to be
you know,
that is beautiful.
Part of a kind of in terms of like the awards and the recognition. again, because I feel, you know, it's really deserved because everyone worked so hard for so long. Like, and I just feel so humbled when I am collecting an award on behalf of us, because I just
On
think,
behalf
you
of
know,
us.
it's so many people, like over 100
Yeah.
people worked on the film. So I don't know. I think we need 100 awards for one for each person.
Yeah. We're working on it.
Yeah. Baz, how do you feel about it?
Actually, whenever I kind of reflect on this, my mind goes back to when we were at animatic stage. So we'd put the kind of storyboard together, and you know, it was all kind of moving, and we were seeing what we were going to be getting. We had a score on there and some basic sound design. I remember showing it to the crew, and there was a kind of small group there, and even the animatic moved people to you know, nearly tears, if not tears. I can't quite remember, but I remember at that stage a few people turning around and saying this is going to be really special, and then saying it's going to do really well. You know, this could do really well with awards. And there's a part of me that absolutely loved that, because you know, you've got people there that are so passionate about it. But my director's head was saying, okay guys, we've got 100,000 decisions to get right in the actual making of the film before we get there. So I feel like over the 5 years of making it, I was very much like heads down, but I had such a fire under me to make this, you know, alongside Ben, Dean and the rest of the crew, the most incredible film we possibly could. And I feel like now that I'm on the other side of it and I'm able to, you know, we've locked the edit, it's sent off, I'm now really able to enjoy that. And I feel the feedback is kind of like, awards aside, like the awards are lovely because it's nice to know people within the industry, you know, your peers and other filmmakers or film kind of critics are seeing what you've done on a, you know, on a narrative technical level, that they understand that how important the themes are, and that's really important, and validating. But I think the feedback that we've had from people at festivals is without doubt the most incredible thing that we could have asked for. That's quite a long-winded answer, that, but
no, but you answered it. Thank you. Baz, you were just talking about festivals. I was trying to track, Dean, how many festivals had we been in together between the two short films that I had in the festival circuit or have in the festival circuit and Two Black Boys. I didn't realize this, which is so crazy. I didn't realize this until maybe Out on Film that we were both at BFI, and I was actually in London. But I was just like, wow, we've been on this journey in some ways and for a while. So I guess my first question, for who, maybe Baz, but for whoever can answer, as of, again, today, Tuesday, November 25th, in two different time zones, how many film festivals do you think y'all have been in? And if you can share, how much do you think you spent on festival submission fees?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think for my short documentary, Miss Honey the Catsuit, I spent almost as much on festival fees as I did making it, and I think that short was close to $4,000.
In terms of fees, I will say this because I think I have a rough idea. I think we're probably about the same as you right now, maybe about £3,000 to £4,000. I don't think Ben would mind me sharing that, and some of that was allowed to be built into the BFI budget. Because they allow you a certain amount to go towards it. But some of it was also, you know, self-funded as well. And then, as Dean says, when we got to a certain kind of stage, we were starting to get more invites or waivers and things like that. So it's been a mix. It's been a mix of kind of strategy, I think. Yeah.
I mean, on my part, like, spending money came going to festivals, like, because that wasn't built into the budget. Like, traveling to America twice was expensive, but also getting around the UK, because trains in the UK are extortionate. Like, just to get on the train, it's not cheap. So that was it's cost a lot, but it's never not been worth it. It's always felt like, okay, once you're there and people are so happy you're there, and like, you meet amazing people, or you see people that you'd seen at other festivals, and you got your festival friends. Like, it's just so nice.
I mean, and if you want like a cute little humble brag for y'all as well, if you want, also how many awards have y'all won? Because like I think y'all might be as of now the most decorated short film that I've held space with for this podcast so far. So like in some regards, I'm also patting myself on the back just for interviewing y'all.
I think we're on over 60 festivals as of right now. I think we're on about 16 or 17 awards.
Wow.
And I have a feeling that this is kind of Ben's area.
Like, it's Dean's modest smile. Dean's like, yeah.
Well, I got a few of them up here at home because I've gone to collect quite a few, and some awards we've like won 3 awards at one festival. So
wow.
we're like, okay, like carrying all these things home is great.
You're like Beyonce at the Grammys.
Yeah, exactly like that. We have pictures like that. But I think our producer Ben was really good at actually asking for fee waivers. I think he got that advice early and did ask for fee waivers for many festivals.
I love that.
And I think that's really important for people to know you can do, even if it's not advertised. Like, if you make your case and if you ask, like, all they can say is no, and then you're in the same position you started, and that's okay. But yeah, places did say yes, and then some festivals did, invite us to, submit the film. Ben did so many submissions, and I know like Baz and Ben really cared about what we didn't get into as well, but I'm just like, come on, like we got into so many so many festivals. So I think I'd had a bit of kind of practice as like a writer. Like, I'd done lots of submissions of my poetry, so I love, when something kind of doesn't get accepted, I'm like, it's been returned to me and I can send it somewhere else. And I think because with some festivals, they want a country exclusive or a city exclusive and stuff like that. So it was, ultimately, I think we were at all the right festivals in all the right countries and cities, and the ones we went to were phenomenal. Like, I had so much fun at Holly Shorts. I had so much fun out on film. Like, our world premiere was at an animation festival called Anima in Brussels. And it was they had a special queer night of all queer animations, and they had drag queens performing in between all the films, and every filmmaker that was there got to get up and say something about their film, and it was an 800 strong audience, and it was just incredible. Like, so as far as world premieres go, it was phenomenal. Our UK premiere was here in London at BFI Flair, which was just like a dream of, I think, all of ours. Like, and it was just like it definitely lived up to the dream. So it's been a real fantastic festival run. Baz, like, what do the awards feel like as the director? Because most of the awards have your name on them, so like you are winning these awards. How does it feel?
I love the cross interview that's happening.
But this is the thing. My name might be on it, but like, I know what the production actually looks like, which is, as Dean said, there's over 100 people. Obviously, not all of those. We were still an indie film. It's not 100 people working all at the same time. Some people gave us a day or two, and some people gave us years. So I see all of those people when we win those awards. So it doesn't, I don't feel like, oh yeah, like, well done me, and but. I wanted to actually touch on something.
But it is also well done you. I hear what you're saying, but it is also well done you. And I do want to just, give you that moment to like celebrate yourself. It is well done. Everybody, all channels went through you. So it is also very much thank you.
I appreciate that. But I just wanted to go say something about what Dean said. Like, when we get the jury statements, I think that really moves me, because sometimes you read an interpretation of the film that is so in tune with what you intended, and this film is so intentional. It's so layered and so thought out. And I don't, some people might only watch it once, as often is the case with shorts, but I really hope people revisit it, because we did put so much care into, almost every pixel on screen, it felt like. So for me, the jury statements, do mean a lot. Because this was our first festival, like proper festival run with a film, you have an idea, you really believe in your film, and you send it off to maybe one of the most elite film festivals out there, and you hope that it might get picked up at a big festival, so that it just snowballs. But what happened with us is exactly what Dean said. We found the exact right home for our film, and then I feel slowly that snowball just kind of rolled and rolled, and then we got to where we are today. So I think obviously some people are only just now discovering it, but the journey began, like, we started submitting to festivals maybe in November last year, and I think our premiere was in March, so there was a 4-month wait. It might have even been longer. So it does feel like it's been a bit of a slow burn, but I don't know if you agree with this, Dean, but it feels to me that might be a reflection of just the way in which the film has been made.
For me, I had never called myself a filmmaker, so this is a really new experience for me to be able to call myself a filmmaker and like be part of something that's means a lot to a lot of people that have seen it.
Maybe somewhat similarly, just speaking Moonlight back into the conversation, where like folks will find out, or like the project will have its second wind. I think I can believe a world that like once Two Black Boys in Paradise are like done its festival circuit. I don't know what y'all have planned, but I hope in some way for all of the Black queer folks that I know who have not seen it because they haven't gone to a film festival yet, if it is accessible to community, I just know that like the people in our community at large, Dean, they are like so hungry for work like this, and just knowing how community will be impacted. So like I think I'm saying that to say be prepared for an influx of much more love. I do have an excellent follow-up question.
Okay, go.
I hope it's excellent. I mean, I think it's only as excellent as the response.
No pressure.
This question does might reveal a bit. Speaking in draft, because the question just came to me as you were fishing for your answer. I want you to both speak from the other. This is a bit of a therapy question. I want you to speak as if you are your partner, talking about what it's been like to work with the other person. So, Dean, I want you to speak as if you're Baz, talking about what it's been like to work with Dean.
And Baz, this is so loaded.
And Baz, I want you to speak as if you were Dean, talking about what it's like to work with Baz.
Do you know, all I want to do is do some sort of parody version of myself and what Dean might think of working with me. This is okay, because we have to then commentate on ourselves, right? This is a question to essentially self-reflect. Oh, Dean, would you mind going first?
Okay, so you talking about working with me. Okay,
yeah.
So Dean has given a great amount of trust and grace to the process and been on hand to, get on a Zoom and answer questions and contribute to the film, but also been a great champion for it now that it's been made. And I'm really happy that, we got to transform his poem into this animation and that it's been so well received. So thanks, Dean.
See, that's so much better than I can do.
Well, I was just being nice. Be nice, don't do a parody.
Yeah, I would say if Dean were reflecting on me and working with me, I think firstly he would acknowledge that both which actually has many times before, but acknowledge how much care and effort has gone into the film, not just from me but from Ben and the rest of our crew. I would say that Dean, if we're speaking really kind of openly, I think would probably recognize growth within me in terms of my understanding of the spaces that we kind of explore together. And I think I would like to think that Dean would say that he felt like I always came into our discussions with good intentions and the right motivations. Would that be fair, Dean?
Spot on.
I
How
love
much
that.
do we owe you for the therapy session, Brandon?
No, those are actually beautiful answers. This question is specifically for Dean. So this is a two-part question. The first part, I mean, I think both parts are fairly easy. The first part is a fill in the blank. I'll say the whole sentence and then you can repeat it with your answer. Black queer film is what?
Black queer film is transformative.
Awesome. Thank you. Now I want you to close your eyes, and this is a sensory question. You said Black queer film is transformative. If that word was a scene, what do you see in that scene? What do you feel? What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you taste? This is a bit of, this is a question of imagination work. So as you said, Black queer film is transformative. What sensory things are coming to you in this moment?
It's like a hug, but with like many, many arms that kind of just keep reaching, and it's becoming almost enveloping, but in the most wonderful way. So yeah, you feel held and you feel like it's your brothers and sisters and siblings, but also your ancestors, but also the future, and we're in this together.
I love that. Thank you.
Well, beautiful answer.
Yes.
It's time for a 60-second pitch, a creative sprint designed to exercise your imagination. Here's how it works. We've got 4 spin wheels with lead and supporting actors, movie genres, and plot devices. I'm going to spin the wheels, and whatever fate hands us, that's your movie. You'll get 30 seconds to ideate, then 60 seconds to pitch your film idea out loud. Let's go.
So this could be our second collaboration, Dean.
Yeah, if we can do it together.
So I'm going to spin the wheel now, and it'll show you the results in a second. Oh, this is an interesting combination. Your lead actress is Teyana Taylor. Your supporting actor is Morgan Freeman. And this is a sci-fi fantasy about an 8-year-old computer hacker.
Oh, wow. Okay, we got as far as Dean. I'm sorry to do this to you, but you're going to have to take the lead on this.
Okay.
Your 60 seconds begins now.
So we have 3 generations of family who are all computer hackers. Morgan Freeman's the grandfather, Teyana Taylor's his daughter, and then the granddaughter is the genius hacker who has kind of like inherited these skills but also refined them, and is now hacking through time to find what is she trying to find? She's trying to find her father, and she is because her mum and her grandfather won't tell her who her father is, and she is sure if she can hack into the right system, she will find the answers and she will be reunited with her dad, because she's kind of feels like that is really important to her to know who he is, and she hacks in. And she regrets it because her dad is the very last person you want your dad to be.
Can I say something? I was originally feeling quite guilty. I was feeling quite guilty that I put Dean on the spot then, but then become very glad that he did that because I'm ready to watch that film.
I agree. It sounded very amazing, and Teyana Taylor has had a wonderful year. So I just know that this is another film that would just be like a notch on her belt. I want to hold space if there's anything that y'all want to say before we part ways.
I would like to say thanks for this discussion, because actually it was, unlike any I've ever had before, but incredibly insightful and really enjoyable. It's been lovely to speak on such a deep level about the film and to hear as well from your point of view kind of what you made of it. It's been really special.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for this space. I want to thank our friend Larry Jean for connecting us, and all the festival friends I've made along the way. And I have, I've got to this age, I'm 41 now, and I genuinely thought I was like, no new friends. I was like, but actually no, more friends please. Like, I've made friends through this film, in the making of it, but I've also made friends traveling around with this film, and I think this is a real gift to me, the kind of the connections that have been made, and I'm really grateful to Baz and Ben for making that happen. So thank you so much.
Thank you both for, again, joining me on Film Fest Friends. It has been such a deep honor and a pleasure to hold space with the both of you. And I am, just know that, like, even beyond all of the accolades and everything, that I am a very big champion of this film. I will scream it to the mountaintops. When it is accessible, I will make sure that everybody I know sees it, because I think this is truly brilliant work that will, I hope, manifesting will enter the vanguard and the zeitgeist of not only just great Black queer film, but just like great animated films as well.